In just 6 months on PrizePicks, I profited $25,000, and in this video, I'll show you exactly how I did it. Need to start by saying PrizePicks was so down bad, I've now been limited on multiple accounts to a max bet size of just $5. Let me try $5.01 just for viewing examples. They will not take it. Let me share the sauce that I picked up over these last 180 days. I broke down this video into 2 key components that helped me reach this 25K mark. We got the strategies and we got the sharp tools, along with bits and pieces of each of these keys to dive into throughout the video. So we'll start with breaking down PrizePicks, or scam picks as I like to call them. So not only do they 1, limit accounts as we just saw, 2, make it impossible to withdraw your own money at times, and 3, offer the lousiest customer support I've ever witnessed, but they mastered one of the sleaziest marketing schemes that new bettors are still falling for: the last 5. You ever see a popular play that looks exactly like this? Hundreds or thousands of people on the same play, and you check his last 5 just to see he's gone over in all of those games. So the over's a lock, right? That couldn't be more wrong. A player's past performances cannot solely dictate how that player will perform in his upcoming match. So PrizePicks knows this better than anyone, and this really explains why they offer this feature for free. So now that that's off my chest, let's get into how to actually attack PrizePicks and make some money. We'll start with the best or optimal slip types to play. So if you don't know, PrizePicks offers multiple slip variations to play on their platform. Ranges anywhere from 2 to 6 leg parlays, and they each have their own unique payouts. So after breaking down the math, we could see that the 6-leg flex slip is the best long-term slip to play. I already hear you guys behind the screen. How is more legs in a parlay gonna help us win more? Isn't that more risky? Well, it's a valid question, but we could see that the 6 flex requires the least win rate per leg in order to break even, meaning that all we need to do is win above this 54.20% mark on each of our picks in order to be profitable long-term. You may have already heard this, but this is the key strategy to use when playing on PrizePicks. If you still are not convinced with this, I'll show you a different example, one away from all the math and the percentages, and we'll focus more on the volume that we're given and afforded if we stick to these 6 mans long term. So imagine we get 1 gold coin, which is equal to 1 unit that you place on each 6-leg wager. Your objective is to land the gold coin into the silver bucket as many times as possible. If you manage to do so, you are rewarded with 25 gold coins in return. This nets you a 24 unit profit. So I'm basically saying that all you need to do is land the coin once every 24 attempts in order to receive that beautiful 25 unit payout from PrizePicks. And this would leave us profitable with 1 unit in our pockets. The idea here is to rack up as many hits and 25x's over the course of these 24 attempts that you get. So then we could build our bankroll more and more. But don't worry, the strategies and tools shown in this video will ensure you have everything you need to pull this off and never look back on your losing betting ways. We can now talk a bit more strategies and touch on what I like to call the synergy strategy. A lot of people, if you've already been playing on PrizePicks, may have heard this as the correlation strategy. If you heard this part already, you could skip forward, but I will have to cover this for newer viewers. It's very important, and it's one of my personal favorites when playing on this platform. Let's take the QB for the Lions example. Take Jared Goff here. And if we're inclined to take Goff's over pass yards in a given game for whatever reason, we can expand on this pick and actually correlate it with another pick. So this is going to help us fill out a nice 6-leg flex play that I was talking about a bit earlier. So if Goff goes over on his pass yards, then the most likely dependent outcome is that his receivers also go over on their receiving yards. Since there's multiple receivers on a squad, I like to find the receiver on the same team with the highest projected receiving yards line, since it accounts for majority percentage of the QB's line. In this case, that is wide receiver 1 St. Brown, and this might be the only time I use the last 5 as reference to see that they both gone over their respective lines in the same 3 of their last 5 games. So in this example, the synergy is very strong. This is not always the case, but it is the most likely outcome. So the strategy is a great way to piggyback off 1 pick, like I just said, and turn it into 2 or 3 total picks to fill out bigger 5 or 6-leg parlays. I've taken the liberty of putting the most common synergy strategies in a table for major leagues, so feel free to pause the video right now and save this to your photos. It's going to help you in the long run, I promise. In this table, we got the NFL, MLB, NHL, FIFA, and you might notice that there's 1 league that I left out. That's, yes, it's one of the major leagues in the world. It is the NBA. There's a reason I left this out though, and I'm gonna explain why. So we're gonna go back before a time Nico Harrison was even mentioned in the news, and let's just say that Anthony Davis ended up staying with the Lakers. So let's just say we were inclined to take Anthony Davis over on points. So what does that mean? Well, I'm always thinking of synergy, my favorite strategy. I'm looking on ways to piggyback off this pick, right? Off this AD over points line. So what does that mean if AD ends up clearing this points? Most likely they will be assisted by the primary playmaker on the Lakers squad, and that would be LeBron James. So what do we take? Well, if we're inclined to take LeBron's over assists, then that's what we would play, to pair him with Anthony Davis. So they would both be going over. You see how we just parlayed one pick into two? That's beautiful. Now, there's a reason I left the NBA for last, and this is why. So we know that the most common synergy in the NBA is a player's dimes along with the teammate's points, both over or under, because an assist cannot happen without a teammate scoring a bucket. So one becomes heavily dependent on the other. It's very straightforward. But another one that I picked up along the way is an over-under on teammates' rebounds. This one is very low-key, but it's so effective. We all know that there's only one basketball in play, so therefore only one person can come down with a rebound at a time. Let's just say we're in the post-Nico Harrison era and we finally have Doncic on the Lakers. So now, what does this mean for the Lakers? Well, they're obviously getting a generational talent in Luka here, but that's not what I want to touch on. Anyone that watches basketball knows that Luka's a triple-double threat on any given night. Scores a bunch of points, gets a lot of dimes, and even will bring down a lot of defensive rebounds. Now, not that common for a guard, but a guard of Luka's status, that is the case. So how does this happen with LeBron now? If I'm not talking about playmaking, how else would these two players correlate? Well, let's just say that Luka is going to be taking a lot of the rebound responsibilities for this Lakers squad. What does that mean for the rest of the players on the team, especially ball-dominant players like LeBron, who obviously like to collect their own rebounds? Well, if Luka is getting the rebounds for the Lakers, what does that leave LeBron with? That's right, not that many. So if I were to take an over on Luka's rebounds prop, I would be more inclined to actually take the opposite for LeBron's rebound and go under. So that's leaving one over cashing in Luka's and then one under cashing in LeBron's, because they're on the same team and there's only one ball in play. Again, not always the case, guys. They could both go over their rebound in a given prop, but I promise you, more likely than not, one will go over, one will go under. That's just the way the strategy works. So you're saying, that's awesome, but why did you leave NBA for last? Why were you telling us it was such a good league to play this strategy in? Well, the only reason I've done that is because on all of the other leagues that you saw previously in the big synergy table, PrizePicks became so stingy with their payouts that they started discounting total payouts on slip. Let's say we were priced for a 25x for a 6-man hit, but I used an NFL correlation pair in the slip. They would chalk it down to maybe 21x or 20x, depending on how strong the correlation was, and therefore we weren't getting a full payout. But because it was basketball and the correlation is slightly less evident, it's one of the only leagues left on PrizePicks that are rarely payout shifted when we use this certain strategy. And it's important because we want to maximize fixed payouts without getting penalized by correlating plays together. So with that being said, I want to show you guys a couple of the biggest hits I had over this 6-month stretch. And I want to actually start with this nice hit that we got here for 625. And we're going to hop into the WNBA here, going back into basketball. And we're going to use this Hamby and Azura Stevens play as our first example. And this is going to go back to that rebounds over and under prop we just had with Luka and LeBron. So we see here the highlighted play Hamby is going to be under 9.5 rebounds. So we took her under, she ended up cashing. And what does that go well with? The next highlighted play, not the same player, but on the same team, Azura Stevens, also a forward. We took her over rebounds. So because they're on the same team and there's only one ball in play at a time, I'm projecting that one of the Sparks' forwards are going to be bringing down more rebounds than the other. And that proved true here. So Hamby ended up going under her line and Azura Stevens ended up cleaning the glass and going way over her line. So what does this do? So this just gives us more confidence in the synergy strategy, right? And a lot of my slips are not complete unless I get some form of correlation in there. This is the example I was talking about before. It's going to be the Stephon Diggs and Drake May play. I'll pause on this for a quick second. You see here, Diggs was over 4.5 receptions and Drake May, his QB, was over 19.5 pass completions. My assumption is that PrizePicks believes this is too much of a correlation because Stephon Diggs cannot physically be getting receptions from anybody else but his QB. And for that reason, they slashed my payout from a 25x to, I believe, a 21x in this case. Because the correlation is super strong here, PrizePicks realizes that. They then give us a full 25x on the slip instead of 21x, which is still a huge $3,000 payout. But just to say, we want to focus on more of those NBA type of plays and those full slips so that we could get full value on our slips. Going here, this was a nice one where we paired 3 pairs of NBA. We got over points, over dimes, under points, under dimes, and we got on over rebounds, under rebounds. This is probably the prototypical example that I would show a new bettor who's coming into this space. These are the kind of slips that we want to look to create if we really want to beat PrizePicks long term. We have the rebound strategy that we used on WNBA teammates. One goes over, the other under. Of course, you can use this in any other basketball league, college basketball, NBA, so on and so forth. And this will really exploit the full payouts from PrizePicks using these plays from these certain leagues. I mentioned the term incline a lot in this video. I kept saying, if we're inclined to take this guy's over, this guy's under. And you guys are probably thinking about, what's this guy talking about? Incline, meaning that if we really like the play, well, what constitutes a play that we really like? this is the part of the video where we're going to shift over to the second key component, which is going to be the smart tools, right? We have to know how to create a slip from scratch, where to look for the plays, and which ones we're targeting. This is how we make the beautiful slips that have been cashing over the 6-month stretch. You need to have an edge when you're playing PrizePicks or any other betting platform to be profitable. Remember when I said we need at least 54.20% per leg in these 6 flex slips to not even be profitable? That's just to break even. So we need a bit above this mark. Well, these tools give us exactly what we're looking for. Enter parlayers. It's an easy to use interface that provides all the top props on the PrizePicks board so that we can secure only the best value in our slips. So the 2 major tools I've used over this 180-day run is going to be the player prop optimizer and the sharp money tool. The optimizer is their classic tool. It ranks the current PrizePicks plays from the most likely all the way down from the least likely to cash. It compares the PrizePicks lines that are currently up on their board to major sportsbooks and other fantasy sports apps, so we can find the best edges and discrepancies in their lines. So when I'm using this tool, I'm looking for 2 things to check off. Is it a purple or green play, meaning a play above 53% or 55%? And is it offered elsewhere? So like I said before, the tool filters the top percentage plays for you. So it's the first thing you see when you open it. Your top plays go to the top so you don't have to scroll too long for value. That's the whole idea. It makes it easier for the user. So any play that is over 53% odds to hit is going to constitute a green play, and anything above 55% is going to be a purple play. These are the ones we're really looking for, but a green will be fine as well. Anything that is over 53% odds to hit, it's close to the optimal number we're looking for at 54.20%. Getting these plays in or slip are crucial to make sure we're getting an edge on our plays. So for example, let me explain why this Mitchell Robinson purple play is a great pick to throw into our slip. We got a couple things I like to touch on here. First of all, it's a purple play. Automatic, catches the eye. It's over 55%. It's going to be one of those plays that are over our break-even rate of 54.20%. So automatically, without looking at anything else, this is primed to be a very good play to get into a slip. Secondly, I'm comparing it back to other books like PrizePicks. So we got Underdog Fantasy, DraftKings Pick 6, and Better Picks as well as our reference books. And you see here that the data entries are empty. There's no data. And that's because this Mitchell Robinson line is either discounted on these other apps or they've been completely removed because this pick is too favored by the market. And I'll get into why that's favored in just a bit. So that's why they're empty, and that's why it's only available on PrizePicks, as you can see here in the filter, only on PrizePicks. And these are plays that I personally like to call PrizePicks exclusive plays because we're getting full value whether we're taking an over or an under. So remember I just said this pick might be too favored, which is the reason that other apps don't offer this pick. Well, why is it too favored? I go over to major books who got BetMGM showing a line, ESPN Bet, Caesars Sportsbooks, and DraftKings, all showing that he's favored to go under 5.5 points. ESPN Bet has him as a minus 145 favorite to go under this line 5.5, and DraftKings has him as a minus 125 favorite. Cool, so that's already favored at this 5.5 line. But something else I'm really liking, I spoke a bit about discrepancies before, is because BetMGM and Caesars both have this line priced at 4.5. So what does that mean? We're getting a 1-point discrepancy back in our favor, and because we're taking it under, we get that room to work with. Let's say Mitchell Robinson finishes with 5 points, and we took an under 5.5 on PrizePicks. That would cash this PrizePicks line. Unfortunately, would not cash a under 4.5 if you take it on BetMGM and Caesar Sportsbooks, because obviously it's a point difference in the line. A point in a basketball game is a free throw. It might not seem like much, but in the betting space, it is everything and truly the difference between a win or a loss. If you do this long enough, you can ask me how many times you win or lose by 1 point value, 0.5 of a point value on any given pick, because the lines are so tight that you need these discrepancies in your favor, and we obviously want to be on the side of the sports books. So this is why Parlayers has the sports books up on the site to show you which direction the major books believe a player will go in. I've also been playing around with the sharp money tool. So the volume of greens here is a bit more condensed, but it's only because the plays are super sharp or smart, whatever you want to call it, because they're so accurate as indicated by the name. So we can only expect the top of the top plays to appear here. Personal strategy, I like using this one first, then cross-referencing with the optimizer. This tool is especially good for is to follow the direction of the sharps or sharp bettors who have access to multi-million-dollar projections and sophisticated models to determine the most likely outcomes for any given prop. That's why instead of traditional fantasy apps as referenced like we had earlier with the UD, DraftKings Pick 6, and Better Picks, we see here now platforms in this column like Novig and ProfitX, which are peer-to-peer exchanges that allow bettors to bet against one another. Instead of betting against the house or Vegas like we'd otherwise do, on big major books like we just saw on FanDuel or DraftKings. Bigger the plus line, the least likely that outcome is to hit because they're underdogs, right? So you're probably asking yourself, why is this site showing us plus lines? Well, correct, you do not want to be on the plus line. Like I just said before, we want to follow the direction of the books. We want to follow favored picks. So you're probably asking yourself, why do we see such heavy plus lines in these columns? Well, these experienced sharps post these lines to offer liquidity at these plus lines, as they can act as the market maker. So picture them as the sportsbook. In other terms, the casual bettor, let's say us, plays the plus line less likely, while the sharps lock in the favored side on the other direction. Therefore, the wagers matched and the sharps could lock in their edge at the favored price. So these are the types of players we want to mimic. You don't want to mimic your neighbor. He doesn't know what he's talking about. You want to mimic these sharp bettors, because on top of the traditional books that we already have as backup to our picks on the optimizer, it's very important we try to follow these sharps as much as possible. If I see a heavy plus line being offered on Novig, it could be a trap, and I know that the quote-unquote sharp money is being played on the other favored side, which is the minus side. This is the direction that I would also like to be betting. The bigger the plus line you see here, the more confidence we have to the opposite minus direction. That's why you're seeing heavy minus lines under the green archers column. Let me explain why the top play on this tool is good value. So we have this Brandon Ingram over 5.5 rebounds, and this is a play I picked out on particular for a couple reasons. So first of all, it's a green play, which we're targeting green or purple plays. And if I actually look at the sports books for reference, he's offered at 6.5 on a couple books. We have Pinnacle, very sharp book, offering him at 6.5, as well as BetMGM. So what does this mean? Well, they're pricing his rebounds line at a rebound higher. So let's say he finishes with 6 rebounds on the nose. He cashes his PrizePicks line because 6 is over 5.5. However, 6 is not over the 6.5 line. I would not cash. So that means that, again, we're getting that 1 point value in our discrepancy, that 1 rebound value back in our favor. And this is why we're attacking. If the books believe that his over-under set to 6.5, they believe that he's in the vicinity of finishing with 6 or 7 rebounds. That's why they priced his over-under at the 6.5 line. But because we're getting it so below at 5.5, that means if Ingram even finishes with 6, which he's super favored to do at the 6.5 lines on Pinnacle and BetMGM, then guess what? We still cash out this PrizePicks line. And that's why it's important to attack the discrepancies. Now, you're asking yourself again, yes, I know, but you explained this on the optimizer plate. That's true. The books are present on both the Sharp Money tool and the optimizer. So what makes this tool so special? Well, let's take a look at this Novig column here. His under is priced at a plus 103. It's under 5.5. It's plus money, plus 103. Now, granted, it's not a huge plus line, but still a plus line nonetheless. So what did I just say before? When you see a plus line, we're looking at plays that are least likely to hit. So this could be a sharp bettor offering the slide to the public at plus 103 odds, right? But because it's least likely to hit, I don't want to take the under. We just said we want to be on the over favored direction. And this is usually on these peer-to-peer exchanges. So because the under is a plus 103 at 5.5, we know that the opposite direction, being the over 5.5, would be the favored play with a minus line. And this is confirmed by, again, the green archer column having a huge minus here at minus 131. So because we have now the books agreeing that he should be favored to go over 5.5, some books even pricing him at 6.5 rebounds already. And we know that the sharp bettors on Novig are betting against Ingram finishing with under 5.5 rebounds, meaning they also want to be on his over at this 5.5 line. We have all the green lights to play this Ingram play at an over 5.5 rebounds on PrizePicks. So these are the kind of plays that the Sharp Money tool spits out that can also be great additions to any slip, especially those big 6 flex ones where we need a good set of picks to cash out that full 25x. I broke down the tools a little bit there, but you still need more insight on the tools, a bit more of a deeper dive on how I greenlight plays that I put into my personal slips. I'll put up both of their tutorials up on screen right now, and you can check them out right after you're done watching this video. So lastly in the video, we'll discuss the parlayers calculators, a bit more of an underrated part to this betting scene, but I still believe it's very important to break down, especially for newer viewers. So as you see here, there's a ton of betting calculators to break down odds and lines, but the one I always seem to go back to is the Novig calculator. So if you don't know, Vig or Juice is a sportsbook fee that is charged you when you place a bet on their platform. So let's just say FanDuel is offering LeBron's over 6.5 rebounds at minus 110. So we would need to bet $110 of our own money to make a profit of $100. So we're betting more to make less. So they're charging you Vig of 10 cents on the dollar. The books need to make money too, right? The only issue with this is that the expected probabilities of a play's over-under are manipulated by this Vig. We don't know the true value of a player's over-under because the books are interfering with their own incentive. That's why I love this calculator in particular. It essentially removes the house's Vig so that we can see the true or fair odds of a pick's over or under. For example, let's break down a pick that I saw in the Better Picks tab on the optimizer. It's going to be the top one for Noah Clowney rebounds under 4.5. Obviously a good play here, purple play, huge purple play with a minus 166 market consensus favorite. And if we just here going to the most favorite book at this under 4.5 line, it's going to be Fliff that has his unders a minus 165 favorite. So his overs a plus 110, his unders a minus 165 at 4.5. What does this mean in true odds? For the people seeing these odds for the first time, this looks absolutely foreign to you. But let me break it down very easily into true percentages and into American odds. So if I put market odds plus 110 in the first box, second box is going to be our favorite direction in minus 165. And you see here the no vig percentage. The calculator strips the vig from the Fliff book. And this is going to be Fliff's idea of Clowney's true odds to go under 4.5 rebounds. And they believe that he's near 57% odds to finish with 4 or less rebounds. And the way you can interpret this is, because it's a percentage, if Noah Clowney plays this same game 100 times over, 100 simulations on the same game with the same active players, everyone's healthy, same team, same conditions, etc., they believe that out of 100 simulations of the same exact game, Noah Clowney will finish with 4 or less rebounds in 57 of those 100 games. Meaning that over the course of the long run, 100 games, 1,000 games, 100,000 games, he will continue to go under more times than he goes over. And this is why I keep mentioning edge in our picks, because if you bet on a heads or tails, and we know heads is weighted, meaning it's more likely to pop up more often than not, we want to bet money on the head side over the long run, because we know that we're most likely expected to make more money betting on heads. It's the more weighted side of the coin. So in this case, Noah Clowney's under 4.5 rebounds over a long term would be the more favored play, the more heavy play that we want to be betting on. And that's the idea behind this whole process. So now that we covered all of our bases, let's do a quick recap to see how we got here. So we touched on the best slip types to play and how good our individual picks need to be to turn a profit playing PrizePicks. We implemented the synergy strategy to get the most out of our picks in big parlays. We've also used the optimizer tool to see if we're getting the absolute best value on the board that's exclusive to PrizePicks. We use the sharp money tool to follow the directions of the sharp bettors and market makers that use advanced models we otherwise will not have access to. Don't trust your neighbors on this. Trust the big boys in the space. And finally, to end it all off, we use calculators to break down player odds and reveal the true percentages of a player going over or under on their projections. As a result of all of this research knowledge and trial and error, of course, I managed to finally hit the $25,000 mark on PrizePicks. So I posted every slip on my journey from the beginning day, June 6th, to the VIP Platinum channel, followed by direct links to tail each of my slips and breakdowns of some of the plays in each of these slips to explain to the community why I was taking plays that I was. If you're too unmotivated to create your own slips, you can leave the hard work to me. All you need to do is click the links when they're posted and tell along each of my daily slips that are obviously backed by the knowledge that you got a nice insight to from this video. I also post my favorite plays and their breakdowns on X and Discord, so make sure to check those out also, as well as all my other socials. The links to everything mentioned and the tools will be in the description of this video. I hope this helped you guys out and gave you insight on how to actually make money using PrizePicks, because it is a real thing. You just have to be patient, put in a lot of volume, and obviously follow these strategies to make it work. It's been jchip, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take it easy.